Okay. And again, at the center of this, you know, it's a self-perpetuating system, a giant spider web of financial, economic, and industry interests with Venetian ultramontane Fondi model at the center. Again, we're going to talk about Venice. It's very important that you understand what Bilderberg is. And one of the reasons, for example, why Bilderbergers have never, ever, ever have had any luck whatsoever in discrediting me, because I understand historical references and precedences. What today, again, is called the Bilderberg Group, 600 years ago was called something else. It was called the Venetian black nobility, and historically, I can demonstrate that. So again, I'm probably the only person in the world who has consistently kicked their ass every time we've met against each other. And we'll be seeing how what I know I can pass on to you so you guys can do the same thing. Because I think one of the, you know, key points of why I'm here is to make sure that, you know, what I tell you, you can get others empowered as well, because we need as many able bodies. Did you want to come over, Chris? As possible. As many able bodies as possible. If you look at actually the roster of some of the people who've made up the Bilderberg Group over the years, again, heads of state, every prime minister in the history of Canada has attended Bilderberg conference. Every president and prime minister of France over the years has attended a Bilderberg conference. You're looking at organizations, international bodies, the presidents of the World Bank. Have a look at this list. They're all there. Have a look at the list of people who are Secretary General of NATO. All of them are there. Again, it just gives you the idea of how powerful this group is. Yet again, curiously enough, when these people meet, no one is prepared to talk about them. This is a curious photograph from 2001. There's John Kerry. This is Catherine Graham of the Washington Post. Kerry was there, of course, and so was John Edwards. Now, this is a seating arrangement. What they do basically is rotate. 1 year, the people whose last names begin with the A sit in the front row. The next year, they rotate. Then the people whose last names begin with a Z sit in the front row. Again, this is from a newspaper in 2001. This is interesting as well. I talk about it in my book. You get to speak for 1, 3, or 5 minutes. If you want to speak, the people who speak for 1 minute during the discussion items in groups, they raise 1 finger, or they raise 3 fingers, or they raise 5 fingers. The 1 minute speakers get to go first. The 5 minute speakers get to go last. None of this is done extemporaneously. It's all prepared. These people, when they meet, it's not a resort where they literally get a massage and just sit there. They work really hard during the time that they're there. Meetings begin at 7:30. They have breakfast. At 8:30, they're working till about 11 o'clock. At 11, they break for about half an hour. At 11:30, they start again till about 1:30. They have lunch from 1:30 to 2:30. They have a break. They take a nap or do whatever they do from 2:30 to 4. At 4 o'clock, they start again until 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, they break. They have their dinner. And by about 10:30, they're all in bed sleeping. Again, they're not there partying. They're really hardworking, which is why I say, again, you really got to respect these people for the amount of stuff that they do. This is curious. As I said to you before, they usually meet in tiny little towns, like, you know, for example, how many people, well, Portland, no. How many people you live in Eugene, Chris?
135,000.
135? Well, that's not a tiny little town. We're talking about towns of about 6, 10, 15,000 people max. And what they do, not to scare anyone off, because you see all these, you know, vehicles with CIA agents and people with guns patrolling the area with dogs. So what they do is they just place a small little ad, a little article in a very local newspaper, you know, tiny thing like this, for example, where you're talking about the meeting of the rich and powerful. There it is. That's all they have to say about the Bilderberg meeting in a local paper the day before the meeting. That's it. So when they actually come, people don't need to worry about, you know, why all these people are coming. They're just saying, well, they're powerful people coming to meet just to talk. It's not important. Don't worry about it. Just go about your own business, while they're literally planning the world's domination. You know, in 2005, Monsieur Etienne Davignon, who was the president of the Bilderberg Group, as a result of my books, which first were published in Spain and sold 15 editions and almost 300,000 copies, they were forced literally for the first time, something unprecedented in Bilderberg history, come out and give an interview and the BBC, where he defended the group, all right, saying that people such as myself, we're conspiracy theorists. What we do is not true, that this is not the way things are. These aren't people that I say they are. These are just people who are no longer in the positions of power, who just meet once a year in a private resort. They talk to other people who meet with them in a private resort. They get a massage, they play golf, they exchange love stories, life stories, they show photographs of their children and grandchildren. And yet, you know, bad boogeymen such as myself will come and muddy the water by giving all this nonsense to the people out there just for the sake of selling books. This is what he said. You know, he said, I don't think a global ruling class exists because I don't think a global class exists. I don't know why I said that twice. I simply think it's people who have influence, interesting to speak to other people who have influence. A little bit later in the article, he says, business influences society and politics influences society. That's purely common sense. It's not that business contests the right of democratically elected leaders to lead. Well, we're going to kick his ass between now and the end of this conference, and we're going to dispel that notion. There it is. He's talking about business influences society and so forth. Actually, you know, in historical terms, if you want to go back, and again, what I do in this book, The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, is I explain historical references to what Bilderbergers are today, where they come from, and obviously where they're going in the future. Now, Joseph Ratzinger, which is not the same as the current Pope, whose name is Ratzinger, he said in the August 1956 Bilderberg report, he said, Bilderberg may be a factory of initiative. We decided, however, that none of the new ideas and initiatives would be developed by the group, but that they should be passed on to some persons, organizations who would further develop it. In other words, these people meet in private, but they don't actually make the decisions. They pass those decisions to others behind them, which is why within the Bilderberg elite, it's a little bit like an onion. I like that explanation. Chris Milligan was talking about that, referring to the skull and bones. Well, you can apply the same thing when you're talking about the Bilderbergers. Yeah, people have absolutely no idea that there's an organized, structured forum behind it, and then you have 3 groups of 13 members, which is your inner circle, you know, the steering committee, who makes the relevant, necessary decisions on behalf of the rest of the group. And again, these are the people who make these decisions. We can also talk about the Observer of London, one of the most important newspapers in the United Kingdom, 1963. What they said was the following, that these people maintain that the future belongs to the technocrats. Because the rumor amongst them is that the grave questions of international affairs are too delicate to be left in the hands of diplomats. However, the clandestinity of their debates shows that they only seek one thing, effective domination over the people of the world, but by dissimulating themselves and by leaving the responsibility of government in the hands of petty politicians. Now, actually, historically, we can go back even further in time to the beginning of the 20th century. Lord Milner of the Round Table, he said the following, we must have an aristocracy, not of privilege, but of understanding, and purpose of mankind will fail. The solution does not lie in direct confrontation. We can defeat democracy because we understand the workings of the human mind, the mental hinterlands hidden behind the persons. We need, or the persona. We need constructive imagination working within the vast complex of powerful people, clever people, enterprising people, amidst whom power is diffused today to produce that self-conscious, highly selective, open-minded, devoted aristocratic culture, which seems to be the next necessary phase in the development of human affairs. Well, how do you guys feel about that?